You wake up. The room is dark. The clock says 3:07 a.m. and the house is completely silent. No footsteps in the hallway, no breathing beside you, no one in the kitchen making tea. Just silence. And something in your chest, something old, something afraid, begins to tighten. What is wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Is this the rest of my life? If you have ever felt that tightening, I want you to know something before we go any further. That feeling is not a sign that something has gone wrong. That feeling is a signal. And today, we are going to learn how to read it and what to do with it. My name is Mahindasiri Thero, and in today's talk on Lotus Dharma Path, I want to speak directly to those of you who eat alone, sleep alone, and walk alone. Not to comfort you with empty words, but to offer you something far more valuable, a path. Because the Buddha, the awakened one, lived exactly this way. He ate alone, he walked alone, he slept alone in the forest. And he did not call it suffering, he called it the most fortunate condition of all. Let us be honest with one another. Many of you watching this are at a stage of life that no one truly prepares you for. Your children, whom you raised, whom you loved with every cell of your body, they have grown. They have their own lives, their own homes, their own worries, and the calls come less often than you would like. Perhaps your husband, perhaps your wife, perhaps they are gone now, passed away or moved on, and the space they once occupied in your life is now just air. Or perhaps you have simply arrived at a point where the busy noise of middle life has quieted down, and what remains is something unfamiliar, yourself. In America, there is a particular fear of this moment. You live in a culture that fills every silence with sound, every gap with a screen, every lonely evening with something to scroll through, something to watch, something to numb the quiet. To be alone, truly alone, is treated almost like a failure, like something has gone wrong in your life. But I want to offer you a different way of seeing this. There is a word in Pali, the ancient language of Buddhist scripture, that distinguishes between two very different experiences. The first is dukkha ekatta, painful aloneness, the loneliness that burns, the isolation that contracts the heart. The second is patisallana, intentional solitude, sacred withdrawal, the aloneness that opens. They feel different, they look different, and most importantly, they lead to very different places. Today, I will show you 5 practices that can transform the first into the second. But first, let us understand, panic is not the problem. Panic is the signal. It is telling you you have been running from something your whole life, and now that the running has slowed, it is time to turn around and meet it. In the ancient collection of Buddhist poems known as the Khaggavissana Sutta, the Rhinoceros Sutta, there is a verse that has been recited by monks and nuns for over 2,000 years. It says, "Having abandoned the children and wife, the father and mother, the wealth and grain, and the various objects of desire, wander alone like a rhinoceros." Now, please do not misunderstand. The Buddha is not saying abandon your family. He is pointing to something deeper. He is saying there comes a time when the soul must walk its own path. And a rhinoceros, you may have noticed, does not apologize for walking alone. It does not look over its shoulder wondering if the other animals think it is strange. It moves with complete certainty, complete dignity. The Buddha himself, before his enlightenment, sat alone under the Bodhi tree for 49 days. He did not have a support group. He did not have a therapist. He did not have a family member to call when things got difficult at 3 a.m. He had his breath. He had his awareness. He had the present moment. And that, he discovered, was enough. After his enlightenment, throughout his 45 years of teaching, the Buddha regularly withdrew into solitude. He called these periods of withdrawal Patisallana, and he taught his monks that this kind of sacred aloneness was not a punishment or a poverty. It was a privilege. Now hear me carefully, dear friend. The empty house you come home to each evening, that is not a punishment. The quiet table where you sit to eat, that is not a failure. The side of the bed that remains unoccupied, that is not evidence that you are forgotten. Life is finally giving you the conditions that monks train for their entire lives. The question is not, how do I fill this emptiness? The question is, how do I use it? Practice 1. Eat with full attention. Make the meal a ceremony. The first practice begins at your kitchen table, or perhaps at your small dining chair, or at the counter where you now eat most of your meals, alone and perhaps a little too quickly. I want to ask you something. When did eating become a problem to solve rather than an experience to have? Many people who live alone, they turn on the television the moment they sit down to eat. They scroll through their phone between bites. They eat fast, almost guiltily, as if eating alone is something to get through rather than something to be present for. But in the monastic tradition, in Theravada Buddhist monasteries across Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, and beyond, monks eat every meal in complete silence. Not because they are sad, not because they have no one to talk to, but because the meal is sacred, because the food is a gift, because to be fully present while eating, to taste, to chew slowly, to feel gratitude for each bite is itself a form of meditation. Here's your first practice. It is simple, it is powerful, and you can begin tonight. Turn off the television, put down the phone, set the table, even if it is just for one, with a little care. A cloth, a candle if you like. Look at your food before you eat. Notice the colors, notice the smell. Think, just for a moment, about the hands that grew it, transported it, prepared it. Then eat slowly, chew fully, taste each bite as if it is the first time you have ever truly tasted it. What you will discover, and I promise you this, is that eating alone with full attention is not a lonely experience. It is communion with life itself. When you are fully present, you are never truly alone. You are in contact with reality, and reality at its deepest level is not separate from you. The Buddha said, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the tasted, there is only the tasted." This is not philosophy. This is a practice, and it begins at your kitchen table tonight. Practice 2. Sleep without fear. Reclaim the night. Now let us return to that moment. 3 a.m. The house is silent. For many of you, the night time is the hardest. The mind, freed from the distractions of the day, begins to work. It replays old conversations. It runs through old regrets. It generates fears about the future that seem enormous in the dark. Here is what most people do. They fight it. They try to stop thinking. They tell themselves, stop it, stop worrying, go back to sleep. And of course, this only makes it worse. The Buddhist approach is completely different. We do not fight the mind, we observe it. Imagine you are sitting by a river. Leaves float by on the surface of the water. Some leaves are pleasant thoughts. Some leaves are anxious thoughts. Some leaves are old grief, old anger, old longing. Your job, the meditator's job, is not to grab the leaves, not to push them away, simply to sit on the bank and watch them float past. This is the practice for 3 a.m. When the thoughts begin, you do not engage. You notice. You say quietly to yourself, thinking is happening. Not I am anxious, not I am sad, just thinking is happening. And then you return to your breath. And before you sleep each night, I recommend a short loving kindness practice, the metta meditation. It takes only 5 minutes. Place your hand gently on your chest. Feel your heartbeat, that quiet, faithful rhythm that has never once missed a beat in all the decades of your life. And silently repeat these phrases. Let them be gentle. Let them be sincere. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I be held in kindness. Begin with yourself, because you cannot pour from an empty vessel. Then expand that warmth outward, to your children, to your friends, to your neighbors, to all beings. And then notice the 3 a.m. moment. The loneliest moment of the night can become the holiest moment of the night. No one wants anything from you. No demands, no schedules, no performances. It is just you and your breath, and the whole resting world. Practice 3. Walk with purpose, not to escape, but to arrive. How many of you walk alone? Perhaps in your neighborhood, early in the morning. Perhaps along a path through a park. Perhaps just around the block when the house feels too quiet. Many people experience their solitary walks as a kind of exile. I am walking because there is no one to walk with. The walk becomes evidence of aloneness. I want to offer you a completely different frame. Every step you take alone is a potential step of meditation. In Buddhist monasteries, there is a practice called jankama, walking meditation. Monks walk back and forth on a designated path, sometimes for hours. Not to get anywhere, not for exercise, but to be fully, completely, entirely present, in the body, on the ground, in this moment. The technique is this simple. As you lift your left foot, you know it. As you place it down, you know it. As you lift your right foot, you know it. As you place it down, you know it. Lift, place. Lift, place. You do not need a monastery. You do not need robes. You do not need a Pali chant. You need only your feet, the ground beneath them, and your gentle, continuous attention. And when you walk this way, especially in nature, especially with trees and sky and the sound of birds, something remarkable happens. The boundary between yourself and the world begins to soften. You are no longer a lonely person walking through an indifferent universe. You are awareness itself, moving through life, part of it, not separate from it. Remember, every solitary walk is not a walk away from life. It is a walk deeper into it. Practice 4. Speak less, but speak meaningfully. This fourth practice is perhaps the most unexpected. It is about speech. Many people who live alone fall into one of two patterns. The first, they go days speaking to almost no one, and the silence begins to feel suffocating. When they finally do speak to someone, they talk too much, too fast, almost desperately, trying to make up for lost connection. The second, they talk constantly, filling every silence with radio or television voices, chatting briefly with cashiers, leaving long messages no one listens to fully. But when the day ends, they realize that not one conversation truly reached another soul. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." This is the fourth practice, quality over quantity. Here is what I recommend. Each day, just one meaningful conversation, one real exchange. It does not need to be long. 10 minutes is enough. It can be a phone call with your daughter, a short walk with a neighbor, a note written by hand to an old friend. But it must be real. No performance, no small talk for its own sake. Real listening, real presence. And alongside this, learn to be comfortable in silence with others. When you visit a friend, you do not need to fill every pause. A shared silence between two people who trust each other is not awkward. It is intimate. The Buddha spent 45 years speaking, and his teachings still resonate 2.5 millennia later. But before any of those words, there was this: 49 days of complete silence under the Bodhi tree. The depth of his speech came directly from the depth of his silence. Your silence is not empty. Your silence is where wisdom is being formed. Practice 5. Build a small daily rhythm. Become your own monastery. Now we come to the fifth practice, and I believe this one may be the most transformative of all. Have you ever wondered why monks in a monastery do not seem lonely, even though they spend enormous amounts of time alone? The answer is not that they are holy people with special powers. The answer is much more practical. They have a rhythm. In a Theravada monastery, every hour of the day is accounted for. Rise at 4 a.m., morning chanting, walking meditation, alms round or meal preparation, formal sitting practice, study, rest, evening chanting, lights out. Not because life in a monastery is regimented or joyless, but because a predictable rhythm creates a container for the mind. When the body knows what comes next, the mind stops grasping, it settles, it rests. Loneliness, at its root, is often not about the absence of people. It is about the absence of meaning and structure. The feeling that the hours stretch ahead without purpose, without anchor, without direction. This is why retirement, for many people, is more disorienting than they expected. Not because they no longer have colleagues, but because they no longer have a rhythm. Here is what I want you to hear very clearly. You do not need to live in a monastery. You are the monastery. Your home, however small, however quiet, is sacred ground. Your kitchen is your refectory. Your bedroom is your kuti. Your garden or your park or your walking path is your monastery ground. Let me offer you a simple rhythm. Adjust it to fit your life. What matters is not the details. What matters is the intention behind each hour. Morning. When you first wake, before you check your phone, before the news, before anything, give 10 minutes to your breath. Just 10 minutes. Sit comfortably. Follow the natural rhythm of your inhale and exhale. If you have a prayer or a chant or a verse that is meaningful to you, offer it now. Midday meal. Eat in silence, even if just for 5 minutes at the beginning of the meal. 5 minutes of full presence. The rest can be as you like. Afternoon. Your walking practice. Even 15 minutes, even around your block. Walk with awareness. Evening. Before sleep, your metta practice. 5 minutes of loving kindness, beginning with yourself, ending with all beings. That is it. That is your monastery. 4 simple anchors in the day, each one only minutes long, and each one a reminder that your life has shape, has meaning, has direction. When you live with this kind of rhythm, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop dreading the silence, you start inhabiting it. The quiet house is no longer a sign of what is missing, it becomes the condition for what is possible. I want to say something now that I hope you will carry with you. In the Buddhist understanding of a human life, there are stages. And the stage you are in, past 60, past the peak of worldly ambition, past the years of building and striving, is not a decline. It is a ripening. A fruit does not become its fullest, sweetest self in the early stages of growth. It becomes its best self when it has had time, when the conditions have aligned, when the sun and rain have done their work. You are that fruit now. I once heard a very old monk, nearly 90 years old, who had spent his entire life in a forest monastery in Sri Lanka. A student asked him, "Venerable sir, do you not feel lonely living so far from the village with so few visitors?" And he smiled, the kind of smile that can only come from a very settled mind, and he said, "I waited my entire life to finally be alone enough to practice. Now, at last, I have what I always needed." You have what you always needed too. The children leaving was not abandonment, it was liberation. The partner gone was not just loss, it was also the opening of space. The career ended was not just an ending, it was an invitation to turn inward. What looks like the universe taking things away is the universe clearing space for you to finally go home. Home, not to a building, but to yourself. Let us return to that moment. 3 a.m. The house is completely silent. But this time, it is different. This time, when your eyes open in the dark, you breathe. One slow, conscious breath. You place your hand on your chest and feel the heartbeat, faithful, present. And you say, not out loud, but in the quiet of your own awareness, "I am here. I am enough. I am walking this path." Let me leave you with these 5 practices, not as obligations, but as invitations. 1. Eat one meal today in full silence and attention. Make it a ceremony. 2. Tonight, if you wake at 3 a.m., do not fight your mind. Watch it and offer yourself the gift of metta. 3. Take one walk this week with only your footsteps and your breath as companions. Walk to arrive, not to escape. 4. Have one real conversation, just one, and be fully, completely present for it. 5. Build your rhythm. 4 small anchors in the day. Make your home your monastery. You eat alone, you sleep alone, you walk alone. But dear friend, you are never, ever truly alone, because the Dharma walks with you. The Buddha's teaching, 2,500 years old, walks with you. And every being who has ever sat in the quiet dark and found their way through, they walk with you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free.